When DCI was founded in 1972, no one had ever heard of the Blue Who? These four were all there. Jerry Seawright began with the Blue Devils Drum and Bell Corps in 1964, and in 1970 founded the drum corps that would change the activity forever. Rick Odello represents 3 generations of Blue Devils. His parents founded the organization in 1957. Rick marched, taught, and has 4 sons who have all marched in the Corps. Shirley Stratton Doherty was an original member of the Drum Corps and led the color guard from military to modern, with innovations like the wings. Shirley's brother Mel first joined the Bell Corps as a snare drummer in 1964. He went on to be the Drum Corps' first drill designer, winning 3 perfect scores in GE Visual.
We, the Blue Devils, had a beginning with the Drum and Bell Corps, which is the nucleus of what soon was to become the Drum and Bugle Corps, if you remember. We had a great drum line, we had a great color guard, and a bell line, great glockenspiel. We were beginning to lose our kids because they were of their age and their talent. They wanted to go elsewhere. They wanted to go to Bugle Corps. Right. And I knew to survive that we would have to go drum and bugle, which is what I wanted anyway. I went to the parent body with a framed bugle with a blue velvet background, pulled it out of a shopping bag and showed the parent body this bugle. And I said, this is where I want to go.
But there already was a parent body.
Oh,
and there already was a fine drum line and already a great color guard. And a nucleus, it was a large nucleus, was already established from the, and before the Drum and Bell Corps era, there was the drill team era in Concord, and clear back in the 50s. And Rick got involved as just a little tyke.
Yep,
I remember it vaguely because I was in high school at the time, but he was actually marching in the Blue Devil Drum and Bell Corps and was an astounding organization. I think that Rick's era set the foundation of quality and excellence that the Bugle Corps went on with.
Right.
Well, they won everything.
We already
the Bell Corps, that was the problem. There was nothing else to win. We won every contest, we won every parade, and it got so that people didn't want to compete in the Bell Corps or other corps against us, so they would go to a different category, go back to junior up to what they called senior. You remember? And we were kind of left in a position of non-competition, so we had to make a move.
Yeah. To Mel's point, there's a lot of history and tradition prior to that.
And I think that's a good part of what made the Blue Devils so successfully, so fast.
People ask, how did the Blue Devils rocket so quickly in the 70s? And it seems like the Blue Devils rocketed quickly from the 70s, but it was a horn line that took off in the 70s. The drum line and the color guard and the parent body was already extremely well established.
I remember going again to the parent club to buy instruments, bugles and drums. Well, I already had them in the garage. They didn't know it. And I was trying to get them to buy these things. Well, they came through, but you remember that? I remember when you got those drums. Absolutely. But that's how we did it. I always held a carrot out in front of the parent body by putting them in debt a little bit.
Right.
And parent bodies
didn't
want to be in debt, so they worked harder to get out of debt, and then I'd put them back, and not much, but that carrot was always out there for them to try to get.
And let's face it, we took some calculated risks too at times.
Well, I did financially, but they came through, and we did it by painting curbs, selling light bulbs,
collecting
Christmas candies,
bottles,
calendars.
Raffles.
Yeah. So that was really the financial beginning of the whole thing, and I didn't want to make the mistake of going from here to here without a foundation.
You know, Jerry, I remember that night that we had that meeting where all the kids in the corps showed up trying to convince the Parents Club to actually go for a drum and bugle corps. And you saying, and I remember this so clearly because I felt like it sort of defined the way we went. You said, the minute we start marking time, we actually start moving backwards.
That's right.
And that was sort of the approach that we all took the whole time. Never stop. Keep going forward, even if it's just a little. Just a little. Keep going
that's
forward.
That's what I wanted to do, just a little, and just like stair step it, build a foundation and move up. But you remember that we got a lot of those brass players out of the color guard. They'd never even seen a horn before.
Right.
But people like Jim Mott taught them how to play, and they became good soprano players.
Well, Jim's a great reference there because I think one of the successes with the Blue Devils organization has always been the high quality of staff we've had, and it was no different in the 70s than it is today of the people, you know, like Jim Ott and that we had to learn from.
Well, like yourself.
Mel, innovator.
See, what's her name here? Sure.
Yeah, but the thing that amazed, as I think back on it now, the point about high quality of staff is amazing, because Jim was a clarinet player.
Was he really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that
He
either.
was a clarinet player going to UOP, and really didn't play brass until his father got him involved with the Commodores, and you got him involved with this new little thing from the Blue Who from where. You had taken private lessons, but
Right.
everything that you did in developing what the drum corps rudimental line was going to be by 76 in the wall of 77 was your own internal creation. Nobody showed you how to do it. All the visual things that the Blue Devils took care of, and Shirley's whole dance
She was
thing.
so
And the
that-
creative.
rifle line and the whole bit, we were making it up as we went along.
everything clicked and worked beautifully, but it worked without previous training,
Right.
without somebody coming in from the outside.
Right.
I think that's what made the Corps have its own internal style, is that it was unpolluted by experience.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think the philosophy of the Blue Devils was carried on because everybody came from within the Blue Devils.
You know, I was thinking
Not
about,
outside.
by the time, like say 1974, when I was a senior in high school, you know, we all went to the same high school, the three of us. We all
Yeah,
went to
that's
Mount
true,
Diablo
huh?
High School.
That's something.
And by the time 1974
The high
came
school-
The
around,
Red Devils.
The high
the
school
Red Devils,
survived.
we had two cafeteria tables full of Blue Devils going to that high school. So we all went to the same high school even. We had been marching together for years and years and years before we rocketed to
We were Red
success
Devils and then
as
Blue Devils.
this national thing, but we had been very, very committed as a family before that.
Yeah.
You know, and making it up as we went along was one of the things I remember, boy, that whole mentality of what if we, whatever, what if we
Yeah.
look
your
around you and make
creativity,
it up.
What you did for the color guard, I think, it was just phenomenal. All the innovative things that you brought to drum corps.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no, I did no
But it was
doubt.
also the environment, you know, and I want to say thank you,
Right.
really,
Well,
Yeah.
for creating that environment where all of us could make it up as we went along. We flopped sometimes, but we had an awful lot of success.
See, was it your dad or your uncle that was the corps director?
My dad.
You and I joined the
1957.
organization. You brought your daughter in the same September night in '64.
64. And that's
And
about the time that Mr. Odell, Tony,
Rick's
said,
dad.
he said, I've had enough.
Right.
And I said, well, I'll take it. I didn't know one in the field from the other.
You were,
But I
you were a
hired people.
stockbroker with a degree in zoology,
Very good.
and
That's
you
right.
were that made you ultimately qualified to
Oh,
be
yeah.
the head CEO of an international conglomerate called the Blue
But I
Devils.
tell you what, it was that philosophy, the corporate philosophy of hiring people that were the best and keeping my nose out of it and letting them do the job. I think that worked out fine.
But you were also a great motivator too, and you were able to see strengths in people that maybe they didn't know they had too. And you had a lot of faith in us, I think, and
Oh,
gave us a
yeah.
lot
Oh.
of leeway too to be imaginative and set new.
It's no secret
Heights.
that you and I had hassles,
Was that a no? That's just.
but
Well, that was the.
but
we
it,
had to argue as
worked
being a
so
staff
well that
member.
all the time that I was arguing with you over who knows what, I knew that you were going to get your caption extremely competitive and exactly right.
Right.
And the whole growth pattern of the fire
Right.
was just exactly that. It was putting the fire to the object and tempering the steel.
We put
And
ourselves to extremes. I think
Jerry
it's
let us
mutual
do
respect.
that. I remember him
Right.
sitting at staff meetings
Let us fight it out.
just absolutely amazed
Yeah.
that these guys were about to come to blows
Oh, yeah.
over whether or not we
Had
were
to
going to
separate
play
you once.
Rocky.
Oh, Rocky.
But what passion over that?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how much we cared and how it had to be right.
Well, let's go back a moment to how it evolved. And you recall, for a while, a very short time, we marched the bells with the Bugle Corps. And then we spent, what, that was 70. In 71, we spent trying to build the corps, learn music. In 72, we went to Seattle, up the Northwest.
But remember, 71 undefeated season too.
First
That's
year
the
out,
first
competitive.
year
We were
as a drum bugle corps,
undefeated.
competitive in Division II or B Corps.
In
B Corps.
72,
B Corps.
I remember we were marching up toward the competitive area, and I was toward the end of the line, and looked up and saw this large, long group of Blue Devils. I was proud.
Yeah.
And we won everything up there.
Yeah, we did. That was
Matter
a
of
great
fact,
trip.
we switched from B Corps to A Corps on the way up there so we could compete with the bigger corps.
That's right.
There was a feeling, an absolute calm, confident feeling of destiny around the corps.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody, without even having to worry about
I
it,
don't
knew.
even think we named it. We just did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember La Palma Stadium was when I
Southern
knew we had
California.
arrived in about, 74. I've got a poster at home that advertises the contest at La Palma Stadium, the Commodores and the Diplomats and the Kingsmen and the Chrome Domes, the Racing Scouts were going to be out, you know, and down in quarter-inch letters at the bottom it says, and one other corps to be announced. And that was us.
Blue Who. The Blue
And I
Who.
remember coming in,
Where'd they come from?
we used to single file in at 4-stride distance, and there was 130, in those days we were allowed 135.
135.
And we had 135 at 4-stride distance filing around La Palma Stadium, just showing off. You know, look how damn big we
We
are.
were good at that.
And we looked back at that line from either end, and you just said, something's happening here.
Yeah.
And that was, it was done with brothers and sisters and saxophone players who wanted to be in the back of bus 3. And that was the days before imports, before
Yeah.
anybody even knew what an import was. It was all just kids from Concord.
And it was the enthusiasm of those kids, and particularly his group. I remember we were talking about this the
animals.
other day.
They
We
were
got
animals.
into, I don't remember the town, but it's about 11 o'clock at night. And Rick wants to rehearse the drum line. And the kids all want to rehearse. It wasn't just Rick, they wanted to do it at 11 o'clock at night. I finally, at about 12 or 1 o'clock, had to go and
Cut
say,
it off.
Rick, cut it off. But that was the enthusiasm throughout the corps. Nobody pushed anybody. They wanted to do it. They wanted to be good.
And it's still that way.
And there used to be a thing, you know, where we would say, bring some friends.
You'd
Next
like-
time you come to rehearsal, bring a
Absolutely.
friend.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
You
you
know?
remember I paid $5 for bringing in a new member? But they had to stay.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, did
Yeah.
all kinds of tricks to get new kids. Clayton Valley started to join in with us. We brought a lot of talent in.
But it was also a battle. It was also hard. Shirley was marching in the line, figuring out what color guard was going to be in the future. You were marching in the line, teaching the line.
Right.
I was
And
marching,
writing.
the first year I marched in the line, and I was 25
In the horn line.
in the horn line. I was the French horn section.
1970.
And I remember making DCI membership in 73 with a staff of 3.
That's right.
You and I were doing color guard. I was doing all the visual. You were doing all the percussion, and
Right.
Jim Ott was doing all of the horn line.
Right.
And we had a total
Whitewater.
staff budget as a DCI member of less than $500 a month.
Yeah.
We were getting gas money.
That's right. I was a big spender. I was a
And,
big spender.
We made membership in 73 and came
We
back in
made,
74. and
associate membership.
Jerry
Right.
had
23rd
associate
place.
membership. Yeah, 22nd,
Third.
23rd.
23rd.
Yeah,
Ooh.
in
I knew
Whitewater.
Yeah,
I
we
had-
remember it.
I went back to DCI that year, and I wore this badge that said associate membership. I didn't know what it was. I just knew I was an associate member. You know, I didn't know what I was supposed to do or where it's supposed to go. But
Right.
Well,
I
you
was
still
pretty
figured
proud.
out, somehow you figured out a way to double the size of the staff. We got another drum guy,
The next year.
another marching guy named Mike Moxley,
Yeah.
another horn guy, unknown dude named Wayne Downey.
You know, 74. Mike used to call me up all the time, want to work with us. And I had him mixed up with another fellow I wanted nothing to do with.
Great.
And I kept stalling, no, I've got Wayne and Shirley. And finally somebody said, straightened me out. Says, we got to get this guy. I don't know if it was you or who it was, but then I hired Mike.
But I remember what an incredible environment, if you remember California at that time, and then, 1971, 72, 73.
Right.
It was a really incredible place to be. There were the Kingsmen
Yeah.
and the Santa Clara program.
Right.
Both of those were just
Well, Santa Clara was our
model.
mentor.
And to their credit, being in
absolutely.
the same neighborhood with the
We didn't know,
Vanguard is...
we didn't know
And
how
not to mention
good
the
you'd have
Condors.
to be without them.
Exactly.
Santa Clara showed us the way,
That's right.
no doubt about
Well,
it.
we
Even
knew
though
if-
Gale would have nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
And we knew if we could beat them, we could beat anybody.
Do you remember the first time we beat them?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
Wasn't
that was
that-
a very bittersweet moment. For me, it was because they were my idols.
Sure.
It's like when you beat your hero
Right.
and they don't want to talk to you anymore.
72 in Winter Guard is the first time we beat the Kingsmen and the Vanguard in A-class Winter Guard.
Right.
And it was sort of
Scary.
shutters went through the ivory towers right there.
Well, the
you know.
Kingsmen were it at that time, too.
and we're moving back east. They all kept saying, where'd these guys come from? Is this a two-corps merger?
Oh, confusing us with the
see,
Kings?
but
No,
there's-
with anybody. They didn't know where we came from. They'd
Yeah,
never
well,
heard
that's
of us.
because we had a no-name staff.
Right.
We're playing on Ludwig horns, Rayleigh
Rayleigh Royce-
Royces.
Royces.
My mother made the flags. Your wife and a whole bunch of other mothers mom made them silk blouses.
Yeah.
Everybody went down to Ward's and bought a pair of black pants and put a white adhesive stripe on the black pants.
So that makes me think, talking about uniforms, though, I mean, that was an incredible story, really, that probably bears repeating. Is in 1976, when we went on our entire first tour, because we decided to get out of the satin shirts, and you had this vision of this new uniform.
Yeah.
And
Well,
they
we'd
weren't,
ordered it.
and they weren't going to be ready for the entire first tour.
They were supposed to have been.
But yet we were undefeated the entire first tour, and we didn't even have our new uniforms yet. So we knew that second tour was going to be pretty successful.
People
And
said,
how did
that's
you
their
get
new
that?
uniform? I bought those short sleeve multicolored, that each caption had a different color
Yeah.
because they didn't have enough
Blue ones.
blue ones. So.
Right, right.
And then we got to Denver. We picked the uniforms up in Denver on the way.
That's right.
You remember that incredible standstill when the uniforms hadn't come in back in the days when people were still doing standstills
And Stockton.
No, in Stockton.
winter of '76 at Stockton when Dave Dugan came swinging in the gorilla costume because he didn't have a drum major uniform to wear.
Right.
And the color guard, the flags were motorcycle mamas.
Yes.
The snare line had the tuxedo T-shirts, and the quads were all guys that worked at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sure do.
But I knew then, when I saw the Corps that day dressed up like that, I knew that there was a personality
Right.
that was coming out
Yeah.
that was not going to it was unstoppable.
There was also a sound.
Yeah.
Oh,
The-
you remember the first show down in Downey
Ooh,
after
yeah.
the earthquake?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you guys were all shouting it. You were in there, and Paul
winter,
Vaughn and
winter of '70.
Big Al out of the Commodores. Yeah. Well, I thought I just had a baby. When that curtain
were
went
great.
up, and those blue lights they had on you.
Yeah. Lawrence of
That's it,
Arabia.
Lawrence of Arabia, and I have that tape incidentally.
Yeah. CD.
We were awful,
Wow.
but I thought they were great,
Yeah, well,
and we won.
it's wonderful that you have the tape. Just don't ever play it.
Yeah, right. I'd like for you to discuss what you were thinking about back in '74, and we were in Toledo, Ohio, and you were coming off from your design for the back corner, which was, oh my gosh, I don't think anybody ever did anything like that.
Right.
Re-entry gates out of the back right-hand
Yeah.
corner. Well, Pete Emmons created that whole motion of coming slowly around the field. First we had the off the line, then he snuck over in the corner, then he snuck off the back center, and we went the other way on the back end of the show and came back into the field out of the back right-hand corner and tried to do these re-entry gates, which
Yeah.
fit the music so beautifully.
Who
And
was the idea? Who came up with the idea of the gates? I forgot.
It's got to be Mel.
Is that you?
Yeah, it's a trademark
I
signature,
watched
sure.
the shows the other night. I still love the gates.
And they were a trademark for
yeah.
12 years, 13
I
years.
used it in my high school band show last year.
They were emotional. Yeah, when you guys went backfield and broke into the gates and came out here.
Yeah.
Well, it was actually quite easy to write. It was Ott and Downey are emotional writers, emotional arrangers, and as drill designer, it's much easier to write when you've got a dramatic contour in the chart that actually has a point that it's going to. It reaches there, and you can imitate that with the visual. And both of them, for the most part, all of their charts make it easy for the visual designer to tell a story because the story is already there on the score.
Yeah.
But you asked me about 74. Just
Yeah.
a personal story on my part is that was my last year marching in the Corps. I aged out in 74. And I was already the caption head and percussion arranger and drum instructor and everything else. And what I did, if you remember, is I was always a snare drummer my whole career. But 74, they legalized mallet instruments for the first time in competitive drum corps history. And in order to better teach the drum line, I put myself on the marching xylophone, if you remember. Now, that's all we had was a xylophone and a set of bells marching around out there. And it accomplished my goal in Ithaca, New York, though, of being a finalist on the field at top 12 corps when we came in 9th. So that was a great year, 74.
You know, the thing that was really growing in this area, too, was Tower Power.
Right.
Oh, yes.
And we were all Tower Power
Our
fans.
local. Well, they're still. I saw Tower Power 3 weeks ago.
In 75 was when we started that?
In
'Cause
75
74
we
was the
did the-
Porgy and Bess.
Right, and 75 we did the
squib
Tower Power.
cakes.
Squib cake, what is hip?
Right.
Squib cakes.
And you know
City
what was great
lights.
about Tower Power? Maybe you just said that, but yeah, it was really, it was our local
It was our
music.
identity,
It was
yeah.
our East Bay Grease. And
That's
all that
right,
stuff.
yeah,
And we were
very
able to
much
bring
so.
that back east in the Midwest. It really caught
And we
on.
laid back with it too. Remember, we were really
We were
kind of
pretty
on the
laid
back
back
side of the
corps.
beat there, and that's where I think we started getting that reputation for being laid back.
Right.
We were
And,
laid back.
and Tower Power, that's a jazz, that's kind of a
Chart
more
that we
innovation
got.
of the swing and the jazz and the big horn sound and percussion.
The biggest thing about 75, though, I think, was not the design. It was that all aspects of the drum corps were beginning to really execute to an nth degree.
Oh, yes.
The machine was working. The color guard was exquisite to the point where it almost seemed simplistic.
That was the problem. People just thought
People
our drill was easy. 'cause
thought
we
the
made it
show
look easy.
was so.
It was smooth.
It must be simple because they're doing it so well.
Yeah.
It must be easy to play that snare drum part and march those inside-out gates like that because they're doing it so well.
Do you remember the snail and squib cakes? And the guys march into the snail, then back out of it backwards?
Oh yeah, I had to clean it.
But I also think that what was happening was we were all learning how to teach. We were developing techniques where we had been experimenting and sort of just bumping into one another and accidentally having things happen.
Well, let's go that way for a minute.
We were able to, at that point, I knew that I was starting to have a technique where I knew that what skills I needed to teach and how I was going to teach them. And we weren't accidentally having things happen at that point. We were making things
We were
happen
getting
by
to
that
the
time.
top of the execution pile where not only did you have to have design, you had to have execution, and then you had to have the psychology of performance that brings the execution to that finals performance.
Right.
And
You treated them with respect,
That's true.
and you got respect in turn for that.
And then I also think that, and Mel mentioned this before, the accountability that we demanded from each other as staff members was incredible because we expected everyone to do their job
And you did.
to the best degree, you know.
And even in those battles where we were fighting over what we were going to do, if you disagreed, you still knew that you could count on that other person.
Right. You knew it was going to be right.
You could count on them, and that was so important.
Right.
They were
everybody
going to
had
follow through and do their job and more.
But
everybody
again,
had the feeling like that. I disagree with your approach on this particular tune or this particular moment inside the show, but it's going to work for your caption.
right.
And maybe the fact that it works for your caption offsets that I don't feel it yet. Maybe I'm going to find something when I see
Right.
your thing going.
Right.
You
It
know.
was fun. Well, we had a phenomenal success. There's no doubt about it. You guys started really 73, made your move, and then 74, 75, and you're champions.
Right.
Unbelievable.
I remember waking
was-
up at DCI in '75 going, we
Yeah, we
could
could.
win this thing.
We could win this thing in
Whoa,
75.
we could win this thing, you know. And then in '76, there was just no doubt.
I don't know where we were. We were open or finals, but it was kind of a misty evening, and I went outside. And the girls, some of the guys were outside of the stadium, and they were crying. I said, "What's the matter?" They didn't win. They took third, but in 3 years.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I said, "My God, do you know what you kids have done?"
23rd to 9th to
They
3rd
wanted
to
first.
1st,
Even
back to
then
back
they-
first. There was always a sense of destiny, you know. And some of the things were happening at the same time, like the whole development of Mangione.
Oh yeah.
You and Jefferson
Carl Jefferson,
had
the Mercury dealer.
had found Mangione, and oh God, remember U.S. Open? No, it was U.S. Open '73. We got bumped out of finals by the Audubon Bonbons
And
in '73,
the Kingsmen were
and we had
Kingsmen were a day late and beat us.
a day late.
so we had no place to go at finals besides to go around and check out the other cores, and we were Ott and I were wandering around, and we heard this horn line playing this ba-ba-da, ba-ba-da, boo-doo-doo-doo-doo,
From
boo-doo-doo-doo,
Rochester, I think they were the chorus
Utica
from.
Yankees.
That's right.
What is that? That's exciting. Who's this by? Chuck Mangione or Mangione or something like that? Ott got enamored with Mangione's sound, and you tracked it down with
Well, the
with
funny
Jefferson.
part about that was Carl. I was asking Carl if he had, because he was involved with the Concord Jazz, if he had any idea what we could, idiom that we could go to. And he says, "Well, I don't know if you like it or not, but there's this fellow back in the East named Mangione. I don't think many people know of him, but here's a record. Take it home and listen to it."
The
And we found
synchronicity
Legend
of
the
it all
Sailor.
is so strange. Remember the camps we used to have, Treasure Island.
Yeah.
Great place for camps.
Great place for camps. And the horn line, I was standing in the horn line the first time I heard Ott's arrangement of Feel of a Vision.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
the first little selection of Mangione that he did. I thought, we have found our niche. We know where we're going. It's not quite jazz, but it is
The
the
lead
essence
into,
of the
yeah.
future. And then
Chase the
then
Clouds.
Clouds and Legend of the One-Eyed Sailor and the
I
rest
still
of
get
it.
teary-eyed
you know.
when I hear Clouds.
Well, then the combination too, when you go into the Channel One suite too, because
Oh,
we were
yeah.
at the
Oh,
same time
jeez.
we're embellishing the Buddy Rich tunes with Space Shuttle and that type
Mm-hmm.
of thing, and then to merge those two together, and they really have an identity.
The Buddy Rich vein was so perfect. Mangione led itself to the horn line,
Yeah.
but the Buddy Rich idiom let
Right.
your drum line crank so beautifully
really
that
gave us an opportunity.
Do you
And you know,
recall being out at the pavilion and Buddy Rich was there, and you guys were
it
playing
came-
his?
Well, that was what I was going to say. Was it was so unique too because in Concord, Carl Jefferson was building that whole Concord Jazz record
Yeah.
label, and he was
Right.
building the pavilion.
Right.
But he used to have those festivals in the park.
Yeah.
Remember
oh,
those?
yes,
And he'd
I
hire the
do.
corps.
Yeah.
And we'd go do the warm-up act for Chuck Mangione, or he would hire
or
us
Buddy
to
Rich.
do,
We
or for
played
Buddy
for his,
Rich.
yeah.
You know, and so we were 16, 17-year-old kids going to see these great guys and be in the warm-up act for them.
And Buddy was out there, and this was before the audience got there, as I
Right.
recall. You were doing a warm-up.
Yeah.
He was a very animated person.
Oh,
anyway.
yeah.
Oh, go, drum line.
Yeah, he loved
Yeah.
it.
Oh, yeah, he did.
Yeah.
It was his music.
Yeah. Which is really how I arranged it too.
Yeah.
I mean, I really didn't write that. I arranged his drum
Well, I
rhythms and put them on
understand
the field. And
it was such an athletic, physical approach to percussion.
Yeah.
Well, plus we had that whole presence of being visual too. I mean, we came up with the concept, and nobody now it would seem like it's no big idea, but white drums was like revolutionary, like, because we couldn't decide, do we want, you know, chrome or silver sparkle? We said, no, we want refrigerators out. We want white. We want to really stand out and have a lot of presence to us. And so being able to do that, and with the drum parts, and then at that time it was very innovative in percussion too, because everybody, and we were the leaders of it, really getting directional instrumentation out. You know, the North drums, or cutting drums, or horn bells on drums, or whatever it took. So I mean, because at that time in the 70s, the percussion instruments weren't what they are today.
Well,
and we had to do, I mean, because they couldn't, the shells couldn't take the cranking,
snares were still on shoulder straps, and you were the guys that took it into fiberglass harnesses.
That's right.
All of that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, Menke was building his own fiberglass, and you guys were.
And you couldn't buy it anywhere. You had to make your own harnesses.
The whole concept that took drumline into a whole new vein.
It wasn't just teaching and writing drums. You had to have your own factory going.
Yeah.
And that was, and that didn't take very long for that to become part of the color guard thing too, where you wasn't just writing flag parts and rifle parts. You were making flags, you were making costumes, you were creating sets, you were, you know, it was just, and we used, you know, we started that early because you used to make our rifles for us.
Yeah, there's one of them here.
That's
You
right.
know, we never had any. We didn't have rifles like everybody else had.
No.
We didn't. Everything was unique. But when you think about it, some of those definitive stylistic shows were the 75 and 76 shows.
Oh, yeah.
You know, even in the 80s, we were saying, well, if we put together a dream show, what would it be? The 76 show?
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
You know?
Well, there were a lot of things. First of all, in those days, we were still dealing with the tick. We were still dealing with standing concerts. We were still dealing with 13-minute shows. We were dealing with a much longer season, at least here in California. We had a season before we went on tour, and we had a season after we
Two tours each year, right?
October.
all the way to the first weekend in October.
It was State.
Yeah.
They call it State. Santa Clara.
The whole thing added up into a package that gained momentum and just kept steamrolling. 76 was a hallmark year for the drum corps.
Everything fell into place. It was,
and it
just-
wasn't
It was
hard.
easy. Yeah, that's right. It was easy.
It wasn't hard.
I remember we were in Casper, and Don Warren came up to me. He said, Jerry, he said, you got it made. You're going to win. There's nobody going to touch you. Very, very true. I said, are you sure? He said, oh,
You
no
knew what he
doubt
was
about
talking
it.
about.
In second place, a score 90.70 to the Madison Scouts.
We won. Do you remember the chaos out on the field with the Blue Devils and how they celebrated? And that had never been done before. I mean, everybody just stood there at attention when they announced they were the winners. We let them know emotionally
Right.
Yeah.
that we were ecstatic over winning.
I think the game changed a little bit though after we won in '76, and then '77 wasn't that kind of the same show again with the Rocky thing? So we kind of stayed with our roots. And then you have the whole challenge of that they talk about staying on top. You know, now we developed, we got
King
there,
of the hill.
and then the whole thing kind of changed. How do you remain on top? And I think that's something that the Blue Devils have to look to their credit now, is being able to maintain that level.
They have.
Over and over again now is unbelievable.
But they have.
Because that got to be the challenge in '78. Now we didn't
Well, for
win in
all of
'78,
us,
but
you know, not only how do you stay on top, but
Yeah.
I know for me it was
How do you be creative?
why do you do it again?
right,
Why
you've
do you do it
you've
again?
done it.
Why do you do it again?
You've
Why do you
done
do
it
it
all.
again?
Yeah,
You know,
but yeah.
And as much as I loved it, 5 DCIs was enough.
Right. Right.
And as much as I loved the creative process, it got to a point where it wasn't enough. You know, and yet there wasn't any place left for the drum corps activity
To take it.
to go.
Right.
And yet it has gone now. It's gone, and it's gone into 3-valve instruments, and it's getting more and more. Well, they'll get into it in the 80s and 90s, but the whole direction of the expansion of the 70s took, legalizing pit equipment.
Yeah, mallet instruments.
Legalizing, I mean, you think back, God, we were playing on GD bugles.
Yeah.
There was no grounded equipment. There was 13-minute shows. There were standing concerts. We had flag penalties. We had grasping penalties. We had dropped equipment penalties. We had boundary penalties.
Right.
Overtime penalty, but they still have.
And I think back on all those things from the past, and they gave the activity a sense of tradition. And
especially our organization, too, a sense of that history and tradition, too.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
because you can look at the cores of right now, of this year, of the new millennium, and you still have that essence of those cores of the 70s, that spirit. And the members that have keep coming and come on again, they do such a great job of maintaining that history of the core.
Sure
I don't even know if they know that they're doing that, but it's just amazing to me.
Yeah.
how many kids?
Because I still feel connected
somehow-
with it.
Yeah, the kids.
How many
the
kids come
atmosphere
in
that
and
was
put on
set
a
up.
Blue Devil uniform? We used to talk about that and think they're Blue Devils. They had to earn it.
That's
Yeah.
right.
It wasn't the uniform. It's the guy that was in it.
That's right.
There was an atmosphere that was set up. I think it was set up in the 50s,
Right.
and it carried through the 60s, and it's still going on now in a new millennium. That there's an atmosphere of excellence and desire to make a personal expression.
Well, where's that come from? That comes from you guys. That
Right.
comes from staff. It's
I always
fellows-
felt, even like I was a little kid growing up in this organization and being around it for decades after decades, all of us have been, was that the Blue Devils was a place where you could go to be really, really, really good at what you did.
That's right.
We just wanted to figure out how to be really, really good at
And
something.
you guys made it possible.
And you not only were you good, but you were surrounded by people
Who were doing the same thing.
who were really good at what they did.
Yeah.
And it created a personal momentum, a personal intuitive drive that, God, I want my visual package to be as good as his drum line,
Right.
you know?
And they come to
Yeah,
Blue
we
Devils
compete
to
with each
learn
other.
today. They don't come here because they particularly want to be a Blue Devil. They come to learn, and this is where they learn.
Right. They want that experience.
They want that experience of being in a Blue Devils. They want it on their resumes. It means something to them. And that makes me feel good, and I'm sure it makes you.
The standards are sometimes really hard, though. They're hard for people to live up to.
We did, but you do. We had.
God, I remember the first free drill. I was about to go into that. Remember the old camps at Carson City, Carson, Nevada?
Yeah.
Carson City, Gardnerville.
Gardnerville.
Gardnerville and Minden.
Yeah.
We had worked Friday night, all day Saturday, putting this production on the field, and it was good. But it was 78, and it was going to have to be more than good. It was going to have to be better than 77.
Finals in Denver.
Oh, that's free. Yeah.
That whole free thing, I remember you guys staying up all night deciding how to do those spirals.
Yeah, you're trying to three-peat there.
Trying to three-peat, and we would have three-peated.
Yeah.
We would have three-peated if we hadn't had that automobile accident.
Tom Cooper
Oh, yeah.
traveling with us on tour.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Remember the whole course shut down and went home for 2 weeks
and that was on the way into Denver.
on the way into finals
Yeah.
for the
I
funerals.
know. I remember you. I was with you.
Yeah, Tom Cooper.
Yeah.
Remember, he was a drummer
Well,
for a
of
long
course I
time, and then
remember, yeah, of course I do.
he got a motorcycle accident and was paralyzed, and used to spend his summers following the Corps around in his van. Hired a driver with him, and we had a show in Boise, Idaho, going into Denver finals, and that night they just hit a parked truck on the side of the freeway. As I
Knocked the
recall.
dollies off the truck.
And Tom was sitting in the passenger side, and he never made it to Denver. And that was that. You're right, Mel.
That
That
took
was
the wind out
that
of it.
kind of did take.
Absolutely.
That was
like,
the
We were already having trouble with those motivational aspects of been there, done that,
Right.
third time,
yeah.
and we're working on that all year long, and that just kind of set us back a little bit. Yeah.
I
But
had-
we still broke some molds that year, I think.
Yeah.
We did, because we had to break out of the mold, and that was the struggle of 78, in my opinion, because when 79 and 80 came around, we actually were a different drum corps again.
Right. Right.
We had a whole new thing that was, especially from the color guard standpoint, we were really moving into a more modern vocabulary.
It was still
musically too.
It was still a very athletic musical horn line and drum line. The drill package was a little bit more subtle and smooth, and that was because of the integration of the new color guard concepts. Color guard was out there being another voice in the visual package that was something new and different and profound.
Expecting to be featured.
Right.
We were expected to.
Boy,
we were
did
expecting to be
boy,
featured
were you
and expected
expecting
it.
to be featured.
Yeah.
Right.
That was a battle. That was a hard thing to figure out.
It was
Well,
a
the
hard thing
hard-
for me to agree to take the cadet collars off of the girls.
No.
They said, and the horn
Couldn't
line, they
move.
couldn't move their head because of the stiff
The ac-
cadet collar.
The activity was getting real hard because up until then it had just been staging the drum line when it was drum solos and staging the horn line when it was horns.
And don't move us
featured.
when we're playing.
And don't move the drum line off the 50-yard line ever,
Ever.
and don't move it up and down the 50-yard line if they're dudge-to-dudge in anything. And all of a sudden we have to start staging wings and hoop-de-doos and
Right.
and
Well, that's another thing you guys did. Your transitions were kind of unique in the activity when you came along and brought the transition from one drill to another, which I thought was a great accomplishment. Of course, I didn't have a lot of history of drum corps to know whether it was something new to drum corps, but I thought it was. Your smooth transition from one position to the next on the field.
Well, 79 was when I actually got to break loose a little bit and start chopping up that color guard uniform and turning it into a costume. So we added the gauchos.
I remember.
We really lengthened the look of the color guard and cut that jacket up enough so that they could move in it because we were having to use more of our bodies. So I thought my feeling was that 79 sort of set up that costume change that we did in
Oh,
1981.
I think so. I think so.
You know,
we
it
went
was
to the spandex.
yeah, and that was where we had to start figuring that thing out. And it was a landmark year in terms of the performance of the color guard in general.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I
You know, it was
couldn't
my
make
best rifle line. The 1980 people will argue with me till the sun goes down about that, but it was my best rifle line in that old style.
Yeah.
In the old style. And then from 1980 on, things started becoming a whole different world.
And also the activity at our corps was changing in that it wasn't a hometown corps made out of little brothers and sisters anymore. It was a nucleus of hometown kids with a lot of very, very talented imports. That was a major difference in the somehow we managed to still bring everybody into the family, but it was a hurry up and learn this person. It wasn't like having
Relationships were changing.
exactly.
Well, we took anybody that was warm to begin with.
Yeah.
Now they've got 200-300 kids trying out for the horn line, the brass line, and the drum line. It's just phenomenal what's happened. As I said, we took color guard and made horn players out of them.
Woodwind players, we grabbed a lot of those, taught them how to play brass instruments.
Yeah. Let's give the kids some credit. They had to leave mom and dad and
Yeah.
apple pie and girlfriends, come out here without any money, live in apartments with 10 other kids. I mean, they really sacrificed, and they're out there on Mars at 10 in the morning till 10, 11 at night. I just admired them, what they went through to be in the Blue Devils. I'm still proud of them. I'm still proud of what we did in the beginning to make all of the above of late happen. But it was the foundation that we laid.
Led by you. Without your leadership, that wouldn't have happened.
Well, thank you, but it was a team effort to make it go. Now, drum corps has gone through several ups and downs and hills and valleys since those days. I didn't like the direction it was going for a while. It got very esoteric. It wasn't drum corps. It was something other, an interpretation of what drum corps should be. But it seems
wasn't
to
our-
have now turned some.
Wasn't our version of drum corps.
It was not. It was the judge's version.
There's a lot of truth in that. But you remember that during the 70s, we took the judges where we wanted to go.
Yeah,
You know, if
That's
you
right.
remember,
Right.
that's exactly right.
we took the judges with us. And I think the activity, to a certain degree, has gone the other way. The judges are taking the activity where they want it to go, and therefore maybe the corps all wind up in their effort to be the #1 corps. They wind up being very much alike.
Right. That's
Oh,
true.
yeah, absolutely. Change uniforms, you'd know, a lot of you wouldn't know the difference.
What I remember of those 10 years is that there was 1,000 kids in those 10 years, and I still remember almost all their names.
Yeah, I do too.
Doesn't necessarily match with the face.
Well, the
It's
faces,
a name,
Well-
it's a face.
the faces are, when you see them now, you just kind of nod
Yeah.
and you remember, and the warm feeling comes back, and
Oh, I love it. I see them now.
you know, you don't remember whether they helped win in '79 or helped lose in '78 or what, but you just remember that you were part of a creative thing that had a lot of emotion on the field and a different kind of almost even deeper emotion off the field. That the family was there off the field and the artistry was there on the field.
Yeah.
But I do think we're responsible a little bit for creating, or in fact a lot, what drum corps is today.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, I mean, the shows that they put on today, we couldn't even have done, we couldn't have even marched at those speeds and done those things. It's so innovative and so difficult, and a lot of changing the adjudication system and pulling back the tick judge and all those things are just, you know, I think it's unbelievable what it's progressed to from a spectator standpoint. You know.
But look what you guys created. You get the hoop-de-doos and the wings, our own rifles, the LeMay. Remember the first time we came out with the silver and LeMay? They call us the Sparkle something Corps. We have done
With
a
your
golf
uniform-
cart, for
your
heaven's
uniform
sakes.
design. I mean, how
Yeah.
many times has that been copied? So.
Yeah, every band in the country's got it.
You know, I think that all of that stuff happened in a really interesting way, because now when we look at things, they're standard. But
Right.
that they
Oh,
were
yeah.
what we kind of made
Everybody's
up
got it.
by
Right.
accident in
Right.
the middle of the night,
Right.
one night. Well,
Right.
what could we do?
Right.
But I have to agree with
Sure,
Mel. I
that's
think
true.
that when I look back on that time, I think about the people. When I look back on those shows, I think about the people. And some of
Yes.
them are still doing it, you know, in some way, or the kids are doing it,
They're doing a senior chorus, you mean? And,
or they're teaching. You
Teaching,
know,
right.
so many of my students are teaching,
yeah.
and so many of them are, you know, have their kids.
Right.
Both of you guys had sons age up in
Yeah,
BA Corps.
true,
You know, that's pretty remarkable right there.
That's great. Yeah, well, for me, it's been just to be able to live it all again through my 4 sons' eyes. You know, it's just been another experience that few people would have. You know, to be able to go there and win DCI again last year was just
Yeah.
incredible.
this guy's now the manager of the B and C Corps.
Yeah. So
B
yeah.
and C Corps.
Yeah.
And,
They say I'm past, present, and future now. So.
but there again, here's our heritage.
Soon to be
carrying
the ghost
on,
of Christmas future, huh?
carrying on our future.
And I think
Look
that's
at-
a remarkable thing about the Blue Devils, you know,
Yes.
and something that Dave's done a brilliant job at too, is keeping this group of people together
Right.
for an
With the high
incredibly
cost
long
today.
time. You know, and we're all still involved.
Right.
So even regardless of the world-class corporate sort of image, it's still a family thing.
Yeah. But I promised the parents the one thing that we would do as we progressed over the years is make sure the kids got at least one hot meal a day.
No, we ate.
And you got it.
Yeah,
Might have been
we
a
did
hot
fine.
peanut butter sandwich, but you got it. It wasn't any one person or any one thing that made the Blue Devils what it is. It was a large group of people working together to make it happen, because everybody, from the parent to the cooks, wanted us to go where we went.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't fighting each other all the time to get there.
And there was never a doubt either that I can remember. Was there any doubt in any that we were ever going to get there?
No.
I had never questioned
Not
that.
even when we
I know.
broke down the first day of tour in 1973.
Oh,
Which is
that
a great
was
story.
The lowest points of
This
my
drum
life.
corps started its first day on tour with a breakdown.
First time we ever
Lost a bus,
went east.
not even 3 hours out of town.
We were Colfax.
Yeah.
And you turned to the corps and said, so what do you want to do, guys?
Go.
Yeah.
You want to go home, or do you want to keep going?
You said you
And I
wanted-
think that was the decisive factor
That
of the
was.
organization right there.
That was.
We got
that's
old
a great
Pop
story.
Odello, Mr.
That's
Odello,
right.
to come up and bring us another bus.
That's right.
We rented.
Dad brought a bus up. I remember.
He
that.
took the old one back.
And we were all looking at you like, how could you even think we would want to turn back?
That's what I wanted to hear.